So hi guys, welcome back to again into our new live stream. And today we are going to continue yesterday's live session that we started yesterday, the topic fever, and we will continue the same topic for today. So yesterday we left at one stage, and I think we still have 1 minute of time. So let everyone join. So today it's 5 p.m. here in Ukraine, and in India it's 7:30. So the time lag is about 2.5 hour for now in summers and 3.5 hour in winters. So I don't understand how it's possible. So today we will continue with one topic, and the topic that we started yesterday, it was fever. So we will keep in continuation with the same topic, and we study finished one stage of the fever, that was first stage, that is stadium incrementi. uh, for now, let me tell you today's plan, our study session. So today we will be doing the same study session as we did yesterday. So we'll be studying for 50 minutes, and then we'll take 10 minutes of break. So first study sessions, which is started just now, which has started. So the first break will be at 5:50 here in Ukrainian time. So 5:50, and then first break after that we will start the next session from 6 to till 6:50, and the last session will be from 7 to 8 or 7:50 as it is. So uh, I think we should start now. So I don't have anything, and also if you have anything, you can put the just let me know in the chat, and I'll answer them in the break session. I will reply all those, any question or anything regarding anything about this concern about. So let's get started. Yeah. Alright, so the topic that we started yesterday was about fever, and let's take a quick uh, look about this topic. So we studied that fever, that it is different from just raising of the body temperature, because it can, if the body's temperature is rising, then it can be either hyperthermia or it can be either fever or hyperthermia. So we just defined how the fever is different from hyperthermia. So in this case we are just going to revise, take a quick look around this topic. So fever is actually, it's a cause of any kind of infection, or it can be either exogenous or endogenous. And the etiological factors that affects or that causes the fever are known as pyrogens. So it can be any chemical substance, any biological active substances, or anything which is for associated with within our body, which is endogenous, or which can be outside of the body, exogenous, or it can be primary or secondary. So all these things we studied yesterday, and now we are here with the stages of the fever. So stages of the fever are divided into three stages. So we went through the first stage, that was the stadium, and incrementi, stadium incrementi. In this case we studied that when body's temperature, the incrementy, which means that increment. So whenever the body's temperature increases, this phase of fever is known as stadium incrementi. During this phase, there are lots of metabolic changes in the body. For example, we have elevation of the body temperature, and also the heat production in the body is more than the amount of heat lost through the body. Also, dilation of vasodilation of cutaneous vessels, that is vessels present in our skin, on the surface of the skin or under the surface of the skin. So these are which due to which heat loss is decreased. And then we saw piloerection, which is piloerection, this goosebump, that is in biological term it is termed as piloerection. On the other hand, also we saw that the cause of this heat production is because of the increased rate of metabolism. So when the BMI, basal metabolism rate increases, um, our heat production in the body increases, and also the oxygen consumption. When the BMI increases, oxygen consumption is also increased. On the other hand, we also saw that the sympathetic nervous system is activated in this case, and if the sympathetic activated, then all the for example cardiological system, respiratory system, everything is increased. So therefore our cardiac output also increases, the heartbeat, the cardiac rhythm, everything is increased, and so the respiration rate also increased. We also saw that this is actually the increase of the BMI is caused, or the cause of this thermogenesis heat production is due to the activation of hormones such as thyroxine and triiodothyronine. So these were the important points that we went through for the first stage of fever development. Now we will go through the second stage of fever development, and the second stage of fever development are, so here is the second stage of fever development that I will go through it, and then I will let you know something about it, what I'm going through it. So the second stage is stadium fastigi. Now, as usual, I told you in the last session that I'll be having one notes for me that will be helpful for revising, just like I revised yesterday, and also one extra paper for me. Like it helps me to keep everything that is coming in my mind, across my mind anytime, something random things. So I will note it down there so that I may not get distracted while studying. So these are the things. This is how I study actually. Alright, so we will go through the second stage of the fever, and here we have. So this one is second stage is stadium fastigi. Yeah. One thing I said wrong here is in first stage we see vasodilation. So this is not vasodilation; it is actually vasoconstriction in first stage. That's a mistake for me. So we see vasodilation in second stage. Therefore, heat body can release more amount of heat, and the peripheral resistance is also decreased. So we have. pressure in the pulmonary artery increase the equal of the concentration of the artery. Concentration constant. Skin. Acids. Conduction. Concentration. Okay, so here we have set point. Alright, so in this case, we will see that heat production and ratio of heat production and heat loss is actually changed from the actual, and it is slightly higher than a normal any normal person. So this is actually due to the change in the set point of this body temperature. Also, we see activation of parasympathetic system in this. So when the parasympathetic is activated, obviously the BMI or the everything is under control or in just like trending towards reaching towards the normal uh, level of the body. So in this case, the all these like vasodilation is occurred, vasodilation is seen, and also in pulmonary arteries, that is the smaller arteries in arterioles, pulmonary arterioles, those are present within the lungs in the alveoli. So there we see like vasoconstriction, and due to this vasoconstriction, the accumulation or the appearance, the reddish, and the skin starts to appear red, and the temperature is slightly higher than the normal, but it is not as high as in stage 1. So this leads to because of this vasodilation, more heat is lost through the body, through the surface of the body, for such as skin, which is main like a reason for the loss of the body. So more heat is lost, and therefore the body start to lose temperature, and therefore it gets like uh, yeah, tends to go towards the normal temperature of the body. Also we see like sweating, then that here we have to note one thing, that the heat is transferred in three different modes, that is conduction, radiation, and evaporation. Now why I'm saying about this is because there are lots of question about method of conduction of heat transfer, or not about the one that is in thermodynamics of physics or chemistry, but here in biology we have conduction, evaporation, and radiation mode of heat transfer. So there are lots of question in croc about how the heat is transferred when the person is in a room, how transfer of heat, what is the mechanism of heat transfer, so whether it will be conduction, convection, or evaporation, or radiation. So according to the situation we have to answer those questions. So there are lots of questions in croc 1. Now, the last stage of fever is stadium decrementi, so we will go through it. Alright, so this third stage is just little bit opposite to the first stage. So in this case, we see like drop in the temperature of the body. So obviously, this is the time when the person starts to recover from this fever. So in this case, we observe like drop in the temperature of the body, heat loss from the body is increased, and also the peripheral vasodilation, such as for cutaneous vasodilation, is very high, increased. Therefore, we see observe that peripheral resistance is decreased in the body, and the pulse rate is also decreased, respiratory rate is also decreased, because obviously the sympathetic system is not active at this time. So all these things are decreasing, or the data are decreasing for this, like respiration and pulse rate. Also, there's one more complication can occur during this, when the temperature drop is very rapid, when a temperature drops very rapidly or very quickly. This peripheral resistance is dropped, also drops very quickly, and therefore it can cause like some circulatory failure or collapse in the patient. And so this is very uh, critical condition, can be very critical condition for those people who are suffering from any cardiogenic disease, or heart disease, from any kind of heart disease, or those who are in old age. So for them, this stage is quite vulnerable. So here we have, and so these are the factors that can there are also some yeah, one more thing, that in this case the cause of this decrementing, or the cause of decrease of this stage is like fever, is because of the presence or absence of, because of the absence of primary pyrogens. So we studied yesterday that there are two types of pyrogens, those are primary and secondary pyrogens. So when the primary pyrogens are exhausted, or they are out of they are not no more available, so it can be either due to this reason, that no more pyrogens are available, so there is no need of maintaining the fever, so the temperature must go down. Or the second cause could be either the secondary pyrogen is no more available, or it can be either due to when we it is yeah, due to when we administer any kind of antipyretic to the patient. So antipyretics are the drugs that brings down our body's temperature, so that's why they are antipyretic, which means antipyrogens. So these are the drugs that bring out our a person from who is suffering from fever. It can be helpful because they stop the production of secondary pyrogens. Discontinue of acceptance and occurrence, vertigo and inverse. Okay, so now we have temperature curves, types of temperature curves during fever. So there are we see lots of temperature curves here, which is depending upon the present how long the fever is persistent in the body. We have different types of temperature curves. Also, we have some terms that is associated with the elevated body temperature, which can be used as a biological term. So we have lots of terms here. So for example, when the we have first one is subfebrile. So subfebrile is a condition, this is a question from the croc also. So for subfebrile is a condition when the body's temperature slightly changes just by 1 degree. So when there is a 1 degree change in the body temperature, which is from 37 to 38 degrees Celsius on an average. So in this case, the condition is known as subfebrile condition, when the body's temperature changes from 39 degree up to 39 degree, that is up to 2 degrees Celsius. So in this case, this one is called moderate condition, or moderate type of temperature elevation. And the third one is about when the body's temperature further changes from 39 to 41 till 41 degrees Celsius. This one is high, and the last one is hyperactive. In this case, when the temperature exceeds beyond 41 degrees Celsius. So this case, this situation is known as uh, hyperactive elevated temperature. So these are like when the body's temperature is beyond 41 degrees, the situation is really very critical, and it can be dangerous for the patient because it can lead to multiple organ failure, maybe in case of some kind of diseases, or organ failure, or maybe destruction of lots of enzymes. So it's really very dangerous for the body if the temperature is going beyond 41 degrees Celsius. It's very high fever. Now we will go through the main forms of fever. So here we have, from the Croc's point of view, we have four important terms that are usually asked in the Croc. So we'll go through all the terms, but let me tell about the four important terms there. So there is a like continuous fever, which we have questions in Croc, and then we have remittent fever also, intermittent fever, and the last one is recurrent fever. So these are the four uh, terminology that is used in the Croc. There are lots of questions about these terms, so you must keep it in mind. The following forms of fever is according to character of temperature. Alright, so here we have like seven types of fever, or based on the different temperature curves, we have seven forms of fever. They are distinguished here. So we have like ephemeral fever, which is also known as febris ephrema, and in this the fever mainly usually persists for like 1 to 2 days or 1 or 2 days, and it can be in on regular basis, so irregular. So and there is no any indefinite time, like we don't have any definite time for this fever. It can be anytime. It has no any regular pattern of appearance. It can be anytime, either in the morning or either in the during the afternoon or in the evening or in the night. Anytime it can occur. So it mainly usually lasts or persists for up to 2 days. So this one is ephemeral or febris ephrema. So then the next one is febris continua or continuous fever. So there are lots of questions about continua, remittent, intermittent, and recurrence. So there are some questions in crop and about the febris continua. So temperature difference in the morning and evening. For this febris continua, the temperature difference doesn't exceed beyond 1 degree Celsius. So when the temperature difference from the morning to till evening in the fever, like in the morning, if the fever temperature due to fever is 39 degrees Celsius or 38 degrees Celsius, and in the evening temperature is 39 degree or 40 degrees Celsius. So if the temperature difference between morning and evening is 1 degree Celsius, then this one is febris continua. And there are most of the examples. For example, in case of lupus pneumonia, typhoid fever, some infectious disease, this type of fever pattern is observed. This type of curve is also observed in this in febris continua. Then the next one we have remittance fever. Remittance fever is the temperature when the temperature difference is beyond 1 degree Celsius. For example, the temperature difference in the morning is 38 degrees Celsius. In the evening, it is 40 degrees Celsius. So it's more than 1 degree Celsius. It can be either 39.5. So if it is beyond 1 degree Celsius, then this one is our febris remittance. It can be also and also we need to note one thing, that the temperature never falls beyond normal, or it never goes to the normal. That is, if the body's temperature is 37 degree, which is the normal temperature. So in case of remittance, the temperature is never normal. It is always higher than or beyond 37 degrees Celsius. It can be either 37.5, it can be either 37, 38. So it is never normal in case of remittance. Now the next we have is, yeah, example for this remittance is catarrhal pneumonia. In case of catarrhal pneumonia, we see such kind of fevers pattern or curve of the fever, that is remittance. Then the next one we have is intermittent. So there's one question about intermittence also, that the duration of the days. So when the duration of the days are, for example, the fever is it can be either high temperature one time, and after 1 or 2 days or 3 days, the temperature of the body again increases. So there is one duration between the fever consecutive fevers. So in this case, this type of fever is known as intermittent. That fever is occurring and it is not persistent. It is occurring after few days. It can be either every day, but there is some duration between it. And also then the body's temperature returns to the normal when there is no fever, and after 2 days 3 days we again see the same rise in the temperature. So in this case, the intermittence fever is considered. The curve is intermittent curve is considered. And the best example for this is malaria. In case of malaria, we often see the fever is not persistent. We often feel sometimes chill at the moment, we feel chill and high temperature. Then after a few hours or after a few minutes, the temperature goes down and becomes normal. And after the cycle can repeat within 2 days or 5 days. So it depends. So this is the situation in case of intermittent. The fifth one we have, which is which all of these in croc are. So the fifth one is about the recurrence fever, which has longer duration between two fevers, like two consecutive fevers. So duration of fever is longer when, for example, the first time when the fever appears and it goes back and goes down, and the second time when the appears, it can be like within 5 to 8 days of duration. So there is no any fixed duration of the fever. So sometimes in some cases of malaria, we often see that the fever first time appearing on the first day, then after fifth or sixth day again the person experiences fever. So this could be an example for recurrence. Also in case of like meningococcemia, also like in case of meningococcemia or tularemia, the same situation is observed. Other one is hectic fever, which is not very popular here, but we only need to know the examples for this. So in case of like malignant tumor or severe, when the temperature difference is very high, that is about 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, which can be a very critical situation. So in this case we often see hectic fever, and it often occurs in malignant tumor, or can be during severe tuberculosis. So these are the fever curves, and one more is inverted. So in case of inverted, the body temperature in the morning is in case of inverted, the morning body temperature is very high, in the evening the body temperature goes to normal. So it is very indefinite, when there's no pattern in the fever. So this is considered as inverted. So these were the seven curves, fever curves that were based on the temperature curves. So we went through it now, and now we will move towards the next topic. While that, now we will go through the metabolism during the fever. So So there's one data about the basal metabolism, which is just as a general knowledge. So let me share about it. That when basal metabolism of the body increases, so how it actually increases. So when the body's temperature is increased by 1 degree Celsius, the basal metabolism of the body is also increased, and therefore the oxygen consumption is also increased in the body. So when the basal metabolism is increased by 10 to 12% of the body, when the basal metabolism is increased 10 to 12% of the body, and oxygen consumption is also about 15%, sorry, 13%. So oxygen consumption increases to 13%. So when basal metabolism increases to 10 to 12% and oxygen consumption increases 13%, then this can lead to change in body's temperature by 1 degree Celsius, increase in temperature. So for example, when the if we come to know about any person or any patient who is having experiencing like from 38 degrees Celsius of temperatures, that means his body temperature has increased by 1 degree Celsius. So in this case, his basal metabolism has increased by 10 to 12%, and his oxygen consumption in the body has increased to 13%. So it's a good data just to analyze the rate of metabolism of the body during fever. Alright guys, so I think it's 5:50 now and we will take a short break right now. Then we will continue with the metabolism of carbohydrate here. Meanwhile, I'll go through some comments if you have any comment here. So we have Sirish Pathak. Hi Sirish. Hi bhai. Stanshu Ramanjan, thank you. भाई आग लगा दी. Okay. ज्योति hi. Hi दी. रोशनी पांडे hi भाई. Hello रोशनी. Thank you Roshni. You're doing great. Thank you. What else we have? So guys, thank you. And we will have a short break and then we will continue from 6 p.m. Alright, guys, so we are back here with a coffee. I need a coffee just in the break just to keep myself active. So, do something. Okay, so let's carry on with our topic. So, we have metabolism of carbohydrates. So, uh, we'll go through this now, the metabolism of basic metabolism, basal metabolism of the body, and how the carbohydrate is metabolized during fever. So we have like when we have lipid metabolism, carbohydrate metabolism, and protein metabolism. All these are here. And about carbohydrate metabolism, so it is increased during fever when because we cannot directly see. So when the glycogen level in the liver is decreased during when we measure the level of glycogen in the liver during fever, so it is observed that the level of glycogen is decreased in the fever. So in this way, we can analyze that yes, the carbohydrate metabolism is also increased, and blood glucose level is also increased. As we know that when glycogen is converted into the glycogen is converted into glucose after its breakdown. So which is known as glycogenolysis, and then we have also we have some this. Uh, Yeah, the same thing we have here is that when the glycogen is converted into glucose, we also that hyperglycemia, that is the blood glucose level is increased. So this condition is known as hyperglycemia here. Then further we have lipid metabolism. So lipid metabolism is also similar, just it also increases during fever. Therefore, many people experiences weight loss during fever after fever. So they say that I lost weight when I was sick. So this is the reason because the metabolism of the body is increased just to produce a lot of heat. Yes, sometimes we observe acetone and ketone body, that is ketonemia and ketonemia and ketonuria is also observed when the when lipid metabolism is increased, or in during also in the case of starvation, because during fever many people have no appetite, they don't want to eat, so they don't feel any urge, or they don't like to eat. So during this time they go under starvation and can cause some toxic accumulation of some toxic substances in the body also, which can be like due to accumulation of ketone bodies in the body. So this is what we have here, metabolism of lipid. Now we have the metabolism of protein metabolism. So protein metabolism is very straightforward. We have like negative nitrogen balance is established here. Here the more the metabolism is protein's metabolism is also increased with the negative nitrogen balance. Yes. Yes. One more thing is when the metabolism of protein is increased, there's lots of amino acids are formed, and when these amino acids are formed in the body, they need to be removed from the body. So in this case, what happens during fever? Sometimes patient feel absence of, or they don't have diuresis, or which is known as decreased diuresis, that they don't go for urination and all. So in this case, what happens, the body's amount of acidic substances in the body increases and can cause metabolic acidosis. So when the amino acids in the body are accumulated, they are increased because of the decreased diuresis, so it can cause metabolic acidosis. So we have one more key point during fever, metabolic acidosis is observed. So Now we will see the changes in the next stage is changes in the. Now we will go through the changes in the function of internal organs. So first of all, we will go through the cardiovascular system. Then next we will go through respiratory, digestive, and further into kidneys, that is excretory and nervous system. So all these are the most important or vital organ systems of our body. Yeah. So we will go through the cardiovascular system. First of all, what are the changes during fever we observe in cardiovascular system? So how cardiovascular system is actually affected in the fever we saw earlier when we were going through the first stage of fever. We saw that during first stage we observed increased activation of sympathetic nervous system. So when the sympathetic nervous system is activated, the cardiac output is increased, which can cause, like, due to cause of tachycardia. So tachycardia is observed. Also sometimes extra systole is observed. So one must not get confused between tachycardia and extra systole. These both are very different terms. Also now we observe sometimes hypovolemia condition, because during fever some water and mineral metabolism is quite different. So what happens, water is retained during starting, and when the temperature goes down in the third stage, water is released from the body as in the form of perspiration. Very huge amount of water is lost from the body. So in this case, what happens, the amount of water is decreased in the body, and the condition can be also hypovolemic condition. So these are some effect of cardiovascular system. Also, there's one formula which is known as von Leben von Leiber-Mister rule, according to which when the body's temperature increases by 1 degree Celsius, the change in the number of beats of heart are like 8 to 10 beats per degree change of this, but like for per degree Celsius of change. So when 1 degree Celsius of body, when 1 degree Celsius of temperature is changed, the number of beat changes from 8 to 10. So this is one key point to remember about our data about heard that during fever 1 degree temperature increase in temperature leads to 8 to 10 degree increase in beats. Now we'll go through respiratory system. So here we have about lungs. So in fever, we observe that tachypnea is observed, that is increased rate of increased rate of respiration. So and it is very obvious that since the sympathetic is activated, so normally respiration rate is also activated. So tachypnea increased respiration rate. And the depth of breathing is decreased. Now the next one is about gastrointestinal tract. So during fever, gastrointestine, how it affects the gastrointestinal. So we all know that during fever we have some interleukins, which acts as secondary pyrogens. So these interleukins influences or affects the brain, and therefore the person does not feel any kind of appetite. So person feels loss of appetite, and also the bile juice and digestive juice are secretion of bile juice and digestive juice are decreased. On the other hand, constipation, putrefaction, that is accumulation of gases or due to some bacterial infection and all, is found observed. Question of nervous system changes in the mental. So one more is about nervous system. Here we have what is the influence of fever on nervous system. So it's very important because what it says that disturbance underlying the disorder of thermoregulation arises in the nervous system. Phenomenon change in the body temperature, cytokine storm. So we all know that when the we have like cytokinins are the one of the examples of more cytokines are produced when we have we are suffering from the fever. So in this case, this is termed as cytokine storm. So when the cytokine amount of cytokine is increased or elevated in the bloodstream, so this is cytokine storm. And some intoxication is also observed during this. Hypothermia is also called. Symptoms infection fevers are not in complete complaint with sensation. So these are some side effects of the cytokines or infectious or intoxication that can cause, like for example, the person may he may experience some like breakdown, tiredness, chill, fever, headache. All these symptoms are observed. Insomnia, sensation towards the light, sensation towards the temperature. Everything is observed because of the presence of some toxic substances or some due to some toxic substances released by infectious substances or organisms. So and this way they act. Um, Heaviness, general indisposition, clouded consistency, relationship with excitement. Now, yeah, of course, the pyrogens are more active in children than in adults. So the response towards the pyrogens in children is higher than in adult. So here we have one more thing, important thing, that TNF, which is also known as tumor necrosis factor or TNF alpha, and along with interleukin 1. So they cause release of beta endomorphins, and they mainly participate in the changes of the mental condition, and therefore they also influence the mental condition of the patient during fever. So mental condition or disturbance in the mental condition is observed also in the case of people, those who are alcohol drinkers or those who conserve lots of alcohol. And also we know that the sympathetic system is also activated in the first stage of fever, and parasympathetic is activated in the second stage of fever. Now we also have some benefits of fever, why actually the body produces or increases its temperature. So why we get fever? So there are some possible benefits. Why? What are the benefits of having fever? Why? When there is any kind of infection, why the body increases its temperature? So what are the benefits of fever that we will look here? Presumably because it has all the persistent response of the body. So this is the first reason why body increases its temperature during infection, is because most of the organisms, they grow within a very narrow range of temperature, within a very small range of temperature. So when the body will change its temperature, body's temperature changes, those infectious organisms, they will not get the proper environment for their growth, and therefore they may be killed or they may die. And therefore the body can protect itself by rising the temperature, because it can inhibit the growth of these microorganisms or infectious agents. The fever, because this fever, this condition will not allow them to multiply and also to grow within the organism. So such examples are like when those viruses, for example, cold viruses, herpes viruses, zoster viruses. So these are the some fungal infections. These are some examples when the body increases its temperature. So these are very specific organisms. They need a very specific kind of temperature or the range of temperature just for their growth, for their multiplication, for their reproduction. And when this temperature, specific temperature is broken, or they when they don't get their proper temperature, adequate temperature for their growth, so they die or they are killed within the body. Now we also know that most of the enzymes in our body present, which are present in our body, and they are found of some. They have some prosthetic groups as well as some non like non inorganic substances. For example, iron, zinc, or copper. All these are substances are present. So when the body's temperature is increased during fever, the macrophages, they stop releasing such substances, and therefore the bacteria or the pathogens, those are present in the body, they cannot get enough of these substances for their enzymatic action, and therefore they are killed. So in this way, the fever also retards the growth of such microorganism. On the other hand, also fever influences on the our hematopoiesis system, and can also increase the rate of erythropoiesis, phagocytosis, other bactericidal activity of the body, and also production of immune complexes or immune substance. Antibodies are also produced when the body's temperature increases. More antibodies are produced. In this way, it can help to kill the bacteria or to retard their growth. Production of interferons also. Alright, guys, so we just finished this topic fever, and now we will go through another topic about hypersensitivity. Let me find. So this is our next topic. We will start reactivity and resistance, immune response of the body. So this is one is also one of the most important topic and in physiology. So we must go through it. Let me find the same topic in this book. Alright, so next topic we are starting here is reactivity, and we will continue with the topic reactivity. Okay, that's excuse me. I just need to turn on the light. Let's do that for me. Alright, so let's start our next topic, reactivity, and we will read now reactivity from now. Reactivity is the ability of organism to react to the influence of internal and external factors by changes of vital activity. So we have development, evolution, reaction, response of the whole body, sensitivity. So we have some different definitions. For example, we have reaction. So reaction is the response of the whole organism, or it's part to an external kind of influence or any kind of a stimulus that could be reaction. Then sensitivity, the ability to accept and define the type, localization, force, or that is strength or periodicity of the factor of influence. Then we have irritability, and the ability of the organism to accept the influence of external and internal factors and respond to them with general low differentiated reaction, changes in the metabolism, shape and size, etc. So irritability and reaction is quite similar. Then we have resistance, so anti-action resistance of the organism, or it's part of to any kind of various factors in that influence various factors. So these are some definitions, basic definitions while starting the reactivity. Now we have reactivity levels. So we have different types of levels of reactivity. For example, normal level, increased level, and low level. So normal level is the qualitative and quantitative adequate. So these are like termed as normalgia, hyperalgia, and hypoalgia. So now we will look at the types of reactivity. So here we have some types of reactivity. For example, specific reactivity. Then we have group reactivity, resistance, and all. So we'll go through them one by one. So ability of respond to a nutrient that can be persist to the cells. So specific reactivity is kind of it's a type which shows any specificity. So for example, it is present only in any specific organism. For example, here there is one example that as atherosclerosis, which is observed in the human being, atherosclerosis, which is observed in the human being but not observed in the rabbit. So this is the example of a specific reactivity. And when we have like there's one also bacteria or something we have. Yeah, exactly. So there is one more trypanosoma, which infect, which so in case of rabbit, if we infect a rabbit with the syphilis, the rabbit will not get syphilis. But in case of human, they can have syphilis. So these are some specificity that one organism can have the same effect, but the another one cannot have. So this one is known as specific reactivity. Now the second one is group reactivity. Now about group reactivity, it's very common thing that it can be either age related or sex related. So about age related, children and adult are like children are most susceptible towards any kind of infection as compared to adult, because they don't have so much developed immune response as adults have. On the other hand, about sex related activity, so we all know that men have more or higher physical resistance as compared to women. uh, on the other hand, the women have more or high resistance towards blood loss. Constitution related reactivity, people with asthenic constitution are less resistant to this physical and psychological than non-asthenic people. Since the stability of human reaction is a contracture. Alright, guys, so it's time for a break. We will take a short break and then we will continue from 7 p.m. And the topic we will continue is immune system and its function. So, we will really study about what are the markers that help to identify self and different like non-self cells from the body. Like we have our own cells, body cells, so immune system, how it identifies them. So, there are some information about it. So, we will continue from this topic now after the break. Alright, so we will go through comments here. Hi Sina, how are you? Driving world, hello. Hello, bhai, how are you? I'm fine, bro. How are you? Driving world. Ontata, must. Thank you. Mentical energize. Great. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye. Hello, Abhi Singh. Sylvie Lani. Hello. Hello. Thank you for handsome. Thank you. Damini Singh. Good night. Good night, Damini. So she's feeling sleepy. Okay, alright, guys. So we will continue now with that. And yeah. Alright, we will continue from now. And the topic that we started just right now is immune system function. So we will go through some of the markers, molecular markers that help us to find or identify our that help our immune system to identify whether the cell that is present is self cell or non-self cell. So there are some markers. For example, one marker is here, which is termed as MHC, or major histocompatibility complex. So these are the some markers which are present on the surface of cell, and they help to identify, they help immune system to identify whether the cell is present in it is whether it is from our same body or it is from the different body, or it can be considered as foreign material. So these are the markers that help them to identify. And so these are major histocompatibility complex which are encoded gene. We all know that the immune system is divided into two parts, that is central and peripheral. So central has bone marrow and thymus, and peripheral has lymph nodes, which are present in appendix or Peyer's patches. All these are areas where we find lymph node. So lymphatic nodes, these are like Peyer's patches, tonsils, appendix. So we have one function of natural killer cells, which is very important. So how it actually kills. So how natural killer cells actually help in maintaining the immunity. So these are one of the cytotoxic cells, and they contain some protein which is cytotoxic. So they contain special proteins which is known as perforin, that makes perforation or cleaves the plasma membrane of any cell. So what the method they use to kill the cell is not direct method. They do not dissolve the cell directly, whereas they use a method known as apoptosis. So they follow apoptosis method of killing the cell. Now in this apoptosis, the this natural killer cell ensures that the virus, when the cell is infected by any kind of virus or any kind of pathogen, so these natural killer cells, they identify them, and they release these proteins such as perforins, and by the action of these proteins, the cell is cleaved from the inside as well as outside. The outer membrane, that is plasma membrane, is boiled out and burst, whereas the cell from inside, everything is cleaved. For example, DNA is fragmented, and the virus present within the cell is not able to come out of the cell, so therefore it may not affect other neighboring cells. So this method is very important for natural killer cell, that it kills by apoptosis method. So here it is given that if a virus infected cell were destroyed or distracted by necrosis, which is a direct method of killing a cell, so in the subsequent releases, it would not, it would only release the viron. Apoptosis leads to destruction of the virus inside, making it unable to release from the cell. Alright, so now our topic starts from the allergy, and about allergy we will start here. Allergy or hypersensitivity. Most of the places they consider, somewhere considered as, so it is hypersensitivity, somewhere it is considered as allergy. So we will mix them, or we will summarize them together. So these are mostly, usually we know about four types of allergic reactions that are present here. They are termed as type 1 hypersensitivity, type 2 hypersensitivity, 3 and 4, type 4, type 3 and type 4. So these are the types of hypersensitivity. Now based on functions they are classified. So for example, the first one, type 1, is classified as anaphylactic. There are lots of questions about anaphylactic in croc 1. Now there is no any direct answer about it, like and this anaphylactic has got lots of names. For example, atopy reaction, then we have like in case of asthma, pollinosis, any type of allergic reaction, reagent reaction. These all are the term used for anaphylactic reaction, which is a one type of hypersensitivity. Then we have second type of hypersensitivity, which is cytotoxic reaction, in also known as type 2 hypersensitivity. And in case of type 2 we have autoimmune, like hemolytic or agranulocytic, or in case of like when any kind of blood transfusion, during blood transfusion, the type of hypersensitivity that is active is second type, that is a cytotoxic reaction. So this one is the type 2. Now the third one is immune complex or immune mediated hypersensitivity. So in this case this is type third hypersensitivity. It usually is seen in case of some infections, some infectious diseases. And then we have also the type 4 one, which is also known as cell mediated reaction. So it is in case of like for some example, like in case of transplant rejection, we have fourth type of hypersensitivity, type 4 hypersensitivity. And this is the cell mediated infectious allergic, or in case of like tuberculosis. So there are questions about when what type of hypersensitivity is included in tuberculosis. So we answer them type 4 type of hypersensitivity. Also in case of like tuberculin test, or in such case of we answer the type 4 hypersensitivity. Now we will go in detail about all these hypersensitivity reaction. Oh, no, sorry. Now here we have the classification of allergies. So first, type 1 allergy, type 1, which we know as anaphylactic and hypersensitive and type 1 hypersensitivity or anaphylactic reaction. So first of all, the most important thing is that it is mediated by immunoglobulin E. So it has IgE mediated. Now why IgE? Because it is one of the immunoglobulin that is associated with release of histamine or allergic responses, such as from the mast cell, and in case of like bronchial asthma. So when anaphylactic reaction occurs, the sudden change or sudden response of any kind of allergen is known as anaphylactic. And here we have it occurs very rapidly occurring allergic response reaction is known as anaphylactic. So this is associated with IgE, type 1 allergic reaction, and the diseases that are associated with are such as hay fever, then allergic asthma, conjunctivitis, allergic rhinitis, anaphylaxis, angioedema, urticaria. All these are diseases that are associated with type 1 hypersensitivity. Then we have also the it is also one of the important thing to note that it can be also called as atopy or reagent reaction. All these are name of type 1 hypersensitivity, anaphylactic. All these have questions in crop with the same names. The immunological stage of an infection start with the first contact of the immune process transformation to type. So there are some causes of death of the patient due to anaphylaxis, and these are main the basic cause. The most common causes of death due to anaphylaxis are some. First one is acute or vessel failure or acute heart attack. So anaphylaxis can cause acute heart attack as well as asphyxia due to bronchial contraction, bronchospasm, because during asthma the bronchi are narrowed and the breathing it gets difficult to breathe, so therefore also it can lead to swelling of larynx. So bronchospasm, asphyxia, bronchospasm, and heart failure, and also swelling of larynx, and also it can also cause some thrombosis in brain or blood vessels. So thrombosis in brain or blood vessels. So these are some causes of death due to anaphylaxis. Now we will move on to the second type of hypersensitivity reaction or allergic reaction. So this one is cytotoxic reaction. In this case, this one is antibody dependent cytotoxicity. So like for example humoral or autoimmune hemolytic anemia. Some examples are such as hemolytic anemia, autoimmune hemolytic anemia, pernicious anemia, also some immune thrombocytopenia. Then we have in case of Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Well, yeah, this one is one question in Croc Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So there's Basedow disease. These are some diseases which are associated with the immune, and here we have transfusion action. So when during blood transfusion, if the blood is not compatible, then there will be a complication, and this immune response is observed in the case of type 2 allergic response reaction. So this is cytotoxic reaction, and in this case that we studied earlier, that there are some antigens which are identified there are some proteins which are identified by our immune system on the surface, whether the cell is self cell or non self cell. So here actually works with this type of hypersensitivity. So now there are some ways how the cells of our own body can transform into a non-self cell, or can be considered as foreign cell or foreign organism. So there are some like some chemicals that they can transform the cell into non-self cells by changing in the structure of the plasma membrane, cell membrane. Also these chemicals can damage the cell membrane, so that the receptors those are present on the cell membrane that helps in recognition of the cell are absent or destroyed. Then we have like some chemicals can also bind on the cell membrane, and they can mask or cover the recognition site, and therefore the immune system may not be able to recognize them as self cell, and they can kill it. So there are some clinical cases that are associated with type 2 hypersensitivity, and these are like transfusion reaction where an incompatible, when the donor is incompatible and the blood cells are destroyed in this case because one person with different blood group cannot accept blood from the different blood group. So therefore there must be compatibility between the two blood groups. And also one more case that is very common, erythroblastophilitis or rhesus incompatibility. In this case the fetus is destroyed because of the Rh incompatibility of the mother's blood. So in case of like mother is Rh negative, the fetus is Rh positive. So the during the second pregnancy, the mother can produce, during the first pregnancy the mother can produce antibodies against the Rh positive, and when the subsequent pregnancy it can destroy the developing fetus. Therefore it is known as rhesus incompatibility with Rh negative mother. And then we have the third one is some autoimmune hemolytic, like autoimmune hemolytic anemia is also when the person develops autoimmune or self destruction of their own blood cells. So can be immune system. Any of the Now we will move on to type third, allergic reaction. This one is immune complex, and these are antigen antibody complexes that initiate acute inflammatory reaction in the tissue. The examples are immune complex, glomerulonephritis. So this one is question in crop 1, that immune complex glomerulonephritis is associated with type third hypersensitivity. Then there is one more, rheumatoid arthritis, serum sickness, subacute bacterial endocarditis, systemic erythematic lupus. This is also one question in crop, that is SLE, that is systemic arthritis lupus. Then arthus reaction. So these are the examples of type third hypersensitivity. There's one more question about type 3rd hypersensitivities in case of glomerulonephritis. So there's one question in Croc about glomerulonephritis. So it is associated with type 3rd hypersensitivity, and tuberculosis is associated with type 4 hypersensitivity. This one is acute glomerulonephritis. Now the fourth one is cell-mediated or allergic reaction, which is associated with type 4 hypersensitivity, and this one is also known as delayed hypersensitivity or delayed reaction. So this is mainly mediated by T cells, and there are examples of hypersensitivity like this. I told you that Muntox test, which is a test for tuberculin test, which is used to test with the requirement of tuberculosis antibodies, presence of tuberculosis antibodies. So this is a test which is done, Muntox test or tuberculin test, and it is one of the question in Croc 1, and that is type 4 type of hypersensitivity. And on the other hand, there are also some stages of the immunological stages. Mechanism of tissue injury, therefore, is direct cytotoxicity, action, T cells and organ cells, and Alright, guys, so we just managed to finish this topic today, and from tomorrow we will continue with another new topic. And if possible, I'll be live tomorrow, or if not, then I'll be live on Wednesday. So today is Monday, the next live will be officially on Wednesday, but if it will be possible, I'll go live tomorrow as well. And it's time for that's all for today. I will just check some chats if there is any comment. So okay, there's one comment. Driving world pro Parivar. Okay, bro. So this is Parivar. This is break for you, and we are done for today. So we will meet to you in the next live session. Till then, thanks for joining me, guys, and see you in the next session. So till then, goodbye and have a great time. And also, if you have any kind of issue or doubt regarding here in MBBS in Ukraine, then of course you can text me. Just like I told you before, you can text me either on my Instagram or either on my WhatsApp, whatever, however you feel. So that's all for today, and see you in the next live session. Till then, goodbye and have a great time. Thank you for joining me.